Civil War II Electric Big Igloo. That was the title of a video I did several years back on my first channel that went mega viral. Now, obviously, I changed the wording because, YouTube's ridiculous, but I continued on this channel with the series about how I thought America was headed towards civil conflict. And now looking back, I was the prophet. Everything we talked about in those videos and other creators like John Mark talked about, from the Boog Boys to even wearing the Hawaiian shirts, all of this stuff has become mainstream. All of the things we said would happen in this country, everything we said the left would do to lead us to civil conflict has happened. And so it's perfect timing that, the election came and they deleted all of my accounts from TikTok and Facebook, and I was forced back onto this platform. And I think that's a good thing because we need to continue talking about the civil conflict that is to come and how we can avoid it, or maybe we can't avoid it, and what we can do to push through it. And today, I want to start by talking about the riots. We know what's going on with the election. We know all the shenanigans. We know that Donald Trump made huge gains with blacks and Hispanics, the people who we were told would put him over the edge in every key swing state. And he did get put over the edge. He won all of those states. But at 1 in the next morning, 1 a.m. in the next morning, he's losing. He's slowly losing ground to Biden, as 99.9% of the new ballots all go to Biden. And who is it? Well, we're told it's uneducated white voters that are coming in and voting for Biden. That's who the ballots are coming from. Sort of debunks the media's whole narrative over the last 4 years, doesn't it? But anyway, I digress. The fact is that we need to talk about these riots because they are part of the plan. The election is secondary. The election was always meant to go this way. It was meant to be contested. Every action they took, from messing with the voting registration, from changing the voting locations, one day you can vote anywhere, the next day only at a certain poll, the mail-in ballots versus the absentee ballots, the extension of mail-in ballots, everything they did was made to cast a doubt on this election. But the riots, they were put in place long before this, because they are part of the plan. And when I say the plan, call it the Great Reset. That's what the globalists call it. Call it the Civil War. That's what the left call it. But it is to destabilize America, without a doubt. And Black Lives Matter as a group, there are a lot of people in that group that I think are okay. All right? But the group as a group is horrible. All right? We know that for 4 years, we didn't hear a peep from Black Lives Matter. Lots of people were shot by the police after Mike Brown, but because it wasn't an election year, you didn't hear a thing from Black Lives Matter. You didn't hear a thing when black people were shot. You didn't hear a thing when white people were shot. Then Joe Biden has that gaffe, "You're not black if you don't vote for me." That's when we finally start hearing from Black Lives Matter again. And then George Floyd, and the media focuses in on that one. Then Jacob Blake, Walter Wallace. And the key takeaway from all of these people that the media have focused in on, that Black Lives Matter has rioted for, is that all of the ones that they've rioted for were career criminals, were horrible people. And I think that's by design. You see, there was a guy here in North Carolina who was shot by police in the back. He was innocent. He didn't do anything wrong. They didn't riot over him. The media didn't talk about him more than a single story on the day it happened. That's because they are snakes. They know that if they pick the people who are criminals, the people like Walter Wallace or Jacob Blake, who pulled knives on police and had a history both of rape and assault on women, they know if they pick those people, people like us, conservatives, will say, "Hey man, why are you rioting over this guy? He deserved it." And that's what they want. They want that division. They want us to clash over these people. That's why they don't riot when a good, innocent person gets killed. That's why they don't riot when it's a white person who gets killed by the police. Or a Hispanic person even. So, Black Lives Matter as an organization, they are about one thing. And I'll show you what that is right now.
Any more justice. We don't want no justice. Fuck justice. We're beyond justice. At this point, it's revenge. At this point, it's vengeful.
So revenge. That's what this is about. Revenge. Vengeance and violence. And look, these people are victims. They are easily manipulated. They are not the brightest people in the world. In fact, when you look at the people that make up Black Lives Matter and these riots, it's usually criminals, gangbangers, violent revolutionary Marxists, and anarchists. And then, of course, the few people who are there as spectators, dumb little tweeny bopper white girls who show up just to feel like they're part of something. And these people are easily manipulated for the most part, but they are being manipulated into doing something that I don't think they would sign up for if they knew the truth. No matter how bad they are, no matter how bad of a criminal they are, I don't think they would be a part of this if they truly knew what Black Lives Matter was all about. And for that, you got to look at the leadership. You got to look at their mission statements and then look beyond that. Well, we can start with the leadership. A lot of the leaders of Black Lives Matter are revolutionary Marxists, far left activists, college professors. And then when you look at their agenda, their demands included dismantling capitalism, dismantling whiteness, dismantling the traditional family. Isn't that funny that all of these demands Black Lives Matter made all go against the black community? This is why they don't talk about equality or progress for black people. Because we know the truth is that white majority countries, blacks do better overall living in white majority countries. We know that blacks do better overall living under capitalist systems. In fact, much better. We know that the traditional family is the best thing for the black community. You can tie the destruction of the traditional family and the lack of father figures and male role models directly to the prison population rising in the black community. And that crime that we see in the black community that causes so many police interactions, it's all because of the lack of strong traditional families. So that right there should tell you that there's something seriously wrong with this organization. But let's go beyond that. Let's look at who funds Black Lives Matter. Well, there's the Chinese Communist Party, and they fund it through many different shell organizations. They also use the big corporations, which they own majority shares in, and they control distribution for a lot of these companies and a lot of other logistics that are involved in these companies. They control, so they have big influence in these companies. They sit on their board of directors, and they're the reason we're seeing so many woke companies spend tens of millions of dollars, even hundreds of millions of dollars on Black Lives Matter. And this is all to destabilize this country. Well, it's actually twofold. One, it's to make up for Biden's gaffes, right? We didn't see a thing from Black Lives Matter for 4 years. Not since Big Mike Brown, back when Obama was running for election again. Fast forward, Joe Biden makes a gaffe, says, "You're not black if you don't vote for me." And overall, he was down in the polls with blacks. So then comes along Black Lives Matter. They dust them off and bring them back out, and the riots start again. And we're told that Trump supporters are all racist. And the people that they pick to riot for, when you look at who they're rioting over, that's how you know this is a nefarious organization. This is how you know that the people leading these groups are anti-American, because they don't choose the guy like the one here who was shot by police in the back and was innocent. No, they riot over George Floyd, Jacob Blake, Walter Wallace, all career criminals, all who were violent against women, who fought with police and were killed reaching for knives. You know, that's who they pick, because they know conservatives like us will say, "Hey, why are you rioting over these horrible people?" And then that makes us the racists, right? That makes us the haters, the bigots. We're the bootlickers who are siding with police over these poor, innocent future doctors. But this is why they pick those people. This is why they don't riot over the white guy who got shot by the police, or the guy here who was just turning his back on the cops and gets shot. It's done to divide us further, and it's part of a bigger plan. I talked about this in a prior video about how the Ukraine revolution was a blueprint for the revolution that the left were going to try to fight here. I talked about how the same players are involved. Russia, China, George Soros, the American CIA, all involved in the Ukrainian uprising. And what they did is almost a mirror of what we've seen here in America. And I called this in prior videos, but they started with these one set of protests, right? Just like Black Lives Matter. And then they moved that protest into the capital city. And then they brought in other groups to protest for other reasons. People who were protesting the election, people who were protesting bad schools and other things. They bring all of these protesters together into the capital area, just like we're seeing right now, people headed towards the Capitol. Once they get them there, that's when the antagonizers come in. That's when they have a tiki torch march come through. Isn't that funny? Guys with tiki torches who are shouting very disrespectful, very rude things to people. I won't say on here, but you get the idea. Later, it turns out that those tiki torches and the people carrying them were bought and paid for by George Soros. Surprise, surprise. Funny how that mirrors what's happening here so much. And those people were used to agitate the crowd and get them riled up. And then the fireworks were brought in. Remember back earlier this year, we heard all of those stories about industrial grade fireworks? Yeah, well, they were shooting fireworks at the police in the Ukraine revolution. That's how it started. And then the police shoot back. And then finally, more fighting happens. And then they storm the presidential palace. Is that what they're preparing for here? Is that why everything we've seen has built this election towards indecision, towards controversy? They could have made it so simple. It was so easy for me to go to the poll and vote in person. And they gave us, 20 days of early voting to do that. But no, we're supposed to believe that even though Trump made huge gains, especially with blacks and Latinos in Florida, in New York, in California, that somehow he lost these key swing states that were majority white. We've been told by the media that uneducated white voters were Trump's core demographic. Were they lying to us again? Well, of course they were, but not about that. Whites are Trump's core demographic, both educated and uneducated, just across the board. He should have won with these groups. And he had the black and Hispanic vote to boost him even further up. And we saw them do just that, all the way up until 1 p.m., or 1 a.m., the next morning. Then the polls are over. They've counted all the polls. Trump's up in all of these states. Okay, let's bring in more mail-in ballots. Oh, these are magical. We just got these in. They were under a couch somewhere. And of course, we know what's going to happen. Trump's going to challenge this in the courts, as he should. But they already have the rioters trained, equipped. The last 6 months have been a rehearsal for what they're going to try to unleash in Washington, D.C. So what do? Well, we play both the short game and the long game. We need to have more kids. We need to train those kids to be subversives. We need a revolutionary right. When I say revolutionary, I mean revolutionary like the left was in the 60s. Have lots of kids, train those kids to go into these institutions and take over these institutions. That's the long game. Make our children go to law school, journalism school, become bureaucrats, work inside the government, try to fight the left on all of those fronts. But we also need to be revolutionary in the short-term sense too. Prepare for defensive measures if need be, but more so just put our bodies out there. Go to these election commissions. Go protest in front of your state buildings. We need to do everything we can right now because all you have to do is look at what they did in Ukraine. And I think that is the blueprint for what they want to do here in America. Anyway, I hope I can make more quality content like this. Let me know. I'm a little rusty, so let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys soon.